Okay, today we're going to do 8-2 notes. Standard form for a quadratic equation is going to be ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are coefficients. So identify a, b, and c from the quadratic below. A is going to be in front of x squared, so a is going to equal 5. B is going to be in front of x, and you do take the sign in front, so that's going to be negative 10. And c is our constant, so that's going to be 6. In x squared plus 7x minus 9, a is going to equal 1. We don't always write the 1 in front, but we have 1x squared. B is going to be 7, that's our middle term, and then negative 9 is going to be our constant. And again, you take the number and the sign in front. Okay, example number 1, factor into two binomials. Okay, we're going to use what's called bottoms-up factoring. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and label your A, your B, and your C. And I'm going to make an X. And I'm going to have A times C in the top part of the X. And I'm going to have B in the bottom part of the X. So if I multiply 1 times 36, I'm going to have 36 in my top part of my X, and then I'm going to have 13 in the bottom. Now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to find two factors that multiply to equal 36, but add to 13. So you want to start off with your factors of 36. So 1 and 36. Well, if I add those together, that's 37, so that doesn't work. 2 and 18 would be next. Well, 2 plus 18 is 20. That doesn't equal 13, so that doesn't work. 3 times 12 adds up to 15. We're getting closer, but that doesn't add up to 13. So my next set of factors are 4 and 9. 4 plus 9 does add up to 13. So I'm going to fill in the side of my X with the factors 4 and 9. Okay? Now I'm going to take X plus 4, because my factor was positive, and X plus 9, because that factor was positive. And then I want to divide by the leading coefficient, which would be A. So I want to divide by A, and I'm just dividing by 1, so that's not going to change it at all. It's going to be X plus 4 and X plus 9. And these are going to be my two binomials, and these are my factors. X plus 4 is a factor, and X plus 9 is a factor. Now I want to bring up the calculator, because we can write it out by hand, the factors by hand, or we can use our calculator. So on the calculator, if I type in Y1 and I type in the A times C, and those would be numbers, and divide that by X, that's going to give me the factors of 36. And if I do Y2 and I take the A times C divided by X and add X, well, that'll give me the sum. Okay, and that will help us when we're trying to figure out what our factors should be. So let me pull up the calculator and show you what that looks like. So if I take this, I'm going to go to Y equals, and I'm going to do A times C, so that's going to give me 36. So I should have a number there, and I'm going to divide it by X, and then I'm going to take 36 divided by X plus X, and that'll give me the sum of the two numbers. So I want to look at the table, so I'm going to go to second graph and look at the table, and these are all the factors of 36. Okay, and you want to look at all the ones that are whole numbers. And then you want to look here, because here's the sum. These add up to 37, these add up to 15. Oh, here's the one that adds up to 13, which is the one that we need. So that tells us my factors are 4 and 9. Okay? Let's go to number 2. I'm going to zoom in. Okay, this time my A is equal to 3, my B is equal to 22, and my C is equal to 7. So again, I'm going to make my X, and I'm going to up my calculator, and I'm going to change those numbers. So instead of 36, now I have 21, and I'm going to change that to 21, and then I'm going to look at the table. And I want all of the ones, these are all of the factors here in the first two columns, and then I want to look at the sum. So I want the one that adds up to 22, and I see that right here. So my factors are 1 and 21. So I'm going to write the factors 1 and 21 in the sides of the x's, and then I'm going to take them and take x plus 1 and x plus 21. Now I want to divide by the leading coefficient, so that would be a. So I'm going to divide by a, and I want to see if I can reduce these. X plus 1/3 does not reduce. X plus 21 over 3 reduces to x plus 7. Now, we're going to take the bottoms up. So since I have a 3 in the bottom, I'm going to move it up in front of the x term. So my factor becomes 3x plus 1 times x plus 7. And these are the two factors of the trinomial. I'm going to take the bottoms up. Okay, number 3. My a equals 1, my b equals negative 14, my c equals 40. So I'm going to make my x, multiply a times c, so that gives me 40, and then my bottom number is negative 14. So I'm going to bring my calculator up, and I'm going to change my y equals to 40, and notice I'm just changing the number, and I'm going to look at the factors, and these are getting smaller and smaller, and then they get bigger and bigger. So I need to go back up, and I can tell I'm going to have a negative number because my middle term is negative. So I'm going to look for negative 14, and it's right here. So that tells me my factors are negative 4 and negative 10. So I'm going to write my factors negative 4 and negative 10, and then I'm going to write them as a binomial, x minus 4 times x minus 10. And again, I'm going to divide by my leading coefficient, which simplifies just to x minus 4 times x minus 10. And so x minus 4 and x minus 10 are my factors of this trinomial. Okay, number 4. My a is equal to 3. My b is equal to negative 17. My c is equal to 10. I'm going to make my x, and I'm going to multiply my a times c, which gives me 30, and my b gives me negative 17. So again, I'm going to pull up my calculator. I'm going to go to y equals, and I'm going to change my factor, or my product, to 30. I'm going to take a look at the table, and I want to find negative 17, and it's right here. So that means my factors are negative 2 and negative 5. So I'm going to write negative 2 and negative 15 as my factors. And I'm going to write them out. X minus 2 times x minus 15. And then I'm going to divide by a. I'm going to divide by my leading coefficient. And I'm going to reduce. X minus 2/3 does not reduce. And x minus 15 over 3 gives me x minus 5. So I'm going to take the bottoms up. Bottoms up. And that's going to give me 3x minus 2 times x minus 5. And these are the factors of 3x squared minus 17x plus 10. Number 5. I'm going to label my a as 1, b is 10, c is negative 99. So I'm going to multiply my a and c, and I get negative 99, and my bottom of my x is 10. So I'm going to bring up my calculator and do y equals, and I'm going to change that to negative 99, and I do have to retype it because I'm adding one more space. 7.1. So that tells me there are no whole number factors that will add up to 10. So when that happens, when I don't find 10 over here, and I don't have whole numbers here, that means that it can't be factored. So this one cannot be factored, and we just state that it cannot be factored. Okay. Number 6, I'm going to label A is 2, B is -3, and C is -35. And I'm going to make my X, and I'm going to multiply A times C, which gives me -70, and my B is -3. So again, I'm going to go to my calculator. I'm going to change that to -70. And I'm going to look for in that last column is -3. So it looks like I need to go up some more, and there's -3. So that means my factors are -10 and 7. So I'm going to write those out. X minus 10 times x plus 7, and I'm going to divide by my leading coefficient, or A, 2. Simplify. I get x minus 5 times x plus 7 over 2. That does not simplify, and that means I'm going to take the 2 and bring the bottoms up. So that leaves me with factors x minus 5 and 2x plus 7. And those are my factors for 2x squared minus 3x minus 35. Number 7, I'm going to go ahead and label my A as 6, my B is 1, and my C is -2. And I'm going to make my X and multiply A and C, and I get -12, and B is 1. So I'm going to go back to my calculator, and I'm going to type in -12 for my number. And I want to look at the table and find positive 1 as the sum, which is in this last column, which is right here. So that means my factors are -3 and 4. So I'm going to write x minus 3 times x plus 4, and I'm going to divide by my leading coefficient, which is A, or 6. And now I'm going to reduce. So I get x minus 1/2 and x plus 2/3. And the numbers of the bottom move up in front of x. So I'm going to perform bottoms up. And that 3 will go in front of the x. So my factors are going to be 2x minus 1 and 3x plus 2. And these multiply out to equal 6x squared plus x minus 2. Okay, moving on to page 2. Number 8. Label my coefficients. A is 1, B is -12, C is 36. I'm going to make my X. I'm going to multiply A and C. I get 36, and B is -12. So pull up my calculator, change my number to 36. And I'm going to look at the table, and I want to find -12. Oh, there's -12 right there. So that means my factors are -6 and -6. So I have x minus 6 times x minus 6, and I'm going to divide by my leading coefficient, which is going to be 1. And I have x minus 6 times x minus 6. And when I have the same factor twice, we do write it as a square, simplifying it, x minus 6 squared. Number 9. We have x squared minus 25, and this gives us a hint, x squared plus 0x minus 25, because we're missing that middle term. So I'm going to label my coefficients. A is going to equal 1, and when that happens, B is going to equal 0, and C is going to equal -25. So when I make my x, I'm going to multiply a times c and I get negative 25, and my b is going to be equal to 0. So when I bring up my calculator, I'm going to plug in negative 25. And I'm going to look at the table, and I need to find 0. Well, here's my sum of 0 in that last column. So that means my factors are negative 5 and 5. So when I write my factors, I get x minus 5 times x plus 5. I'm going to divide by my leading coefficient, which is going to be 1, which is going to leave me with x minus 5 times x plus 5. And these are my factors for x squared minus 25. Number 10. A is equal to 16, B is equal to 8, C is equal to 1. So I'm going to multiply 8 times C, and I'm going to get 16, and B is equal to 8. So I'm going to change my y equals to 16. And I want to look and find where I have 8 as a sum. And here we are right here. That's going to be 4 times 4. So I have 4 and 4 on the sides, and that's going to give me x plus 4 times x plus 4. And then I'm going to divide by a. So I'm going to divide by the leading coefficient 16, and I'm going to reduce x plus 1/4 times x plus 1/4, and I'm going to bring the bottoms up. So the bottoms come up in front of x. And I'm going to get 4x plus 1 times 4x plus 1, and that is a square. So that's going to be written 4x plus 1 squared. Number 11. A is going to equal 9. I don't have a middle term, so here's your hint again. It's going to equal 0 for B, and C is going to equal negative 4. So I'm going to multiply A and C together, and I get negative 36, and 0 is going to be my B. So when I bring up my calculator, I'm going to type in negative 36. I want to look at the table so I can find my sum of 0. Looks like I need to go down. And there's my sum of 0. And it's 6 and negative 6. So I have 6 and negative 6 for my factors. And we'll write those out. X plus 6 times x minus 6. And then I'm going to divide by my leading coefficient, which is a, 9. And I'm going to simplify. X plus 2/3 times x minus 2/3. And then I'm going to bring the bottoms up. So the bottoms come up in front of x. And I get 3x plus 2 times 3x minus 2. And these are my factors for 9x squared minus 4. Number 12. I'm going to label my coefficients. A equals 3, B equals 5, C equals negative 2. Make my x. Multiply my A times C, negative 6, and B goes on the bottom. So I'm going to bring up my calculator, and I'm going to change my number to negative 6. And I'm going to check for 5 as a sum. So my sum is in this last column, and here's 5. So it's 6 and negative 1. So my factors are 6 and negative 1. And I'm going to write my binomial factors. X plus 6 times x minus 1. I'm going to divide by the leading coefficient a, which is 3. And I'm going to simplify. I get x plus 2. And x minus 1 over 3 does not reduce. And that means I'm going to bring the bottoms up. And my factors are going to be x plus 2 times 3x minus 1. Number 13. I'm going to label my coefficients. A is 8, B is 58, and C is negative 15. I'm going to make my x, and I'm going to multiply 8 times negative 15. That gives me negative 120. And 58b goes in the bottom. I'm going to bring up my calculator and change my number to negative 120. And I'm going to check for 58. So it looks like I need to go down. To 58. Keep scrolling. Oh, there it is, 58. So that means my factors are 60 and negative 2. So I'm going to have x plus 60 times x minus 2. And I'm going to divide by my leading coefficient of 8. And I'm going to simplify. I get x plus, and I think I'm going to use my calculator to reduce 60 over 8. And that gives me 15 over 2. And x minus 1/4 reduces. And that means I'm going to bring the bottoms up. So my factors are going to be 2x plus 15 times 4x minus 1. Number 14, what are the possible dimensions of a rectangle in terms of x if the given area is 2x squared minus 5x minus 7? So this is the area, and we're breaking it up into the length times width. So again, I'm going to label my coefficients. A is 2, B is negative 5, C is negative 7. And I'm going to make my x and multiply A times C, so negative 14 and negative 5. I'm going to use my calculator. I'm going to change that to negative 14. And I'm going to look for negative 5. Oops, I'm going to have to go back up. I'm going to start back up at 0. Okay, so I'm looking for negative 5. I think I'm going to go up. There's negative 5. So it means my factors are negative 7 and 2. So I'm going to have x minus 7 times x plus 2. Now I'm going to divide by my leading coefficient 2, or A. X minus 7 over 2 does not reduce. X plus 1 does. And that leaves me with 2, bringing the bottom up. So I'm going to bring bottoms up. And I get my factors of 2x minus 7 times x plus 1. Okay, number 15. What is the perimeter of a square whose area is 9x squared plus 30x minus 25? So again, A equals 9, B equals 30, and C equals negative 25. So if I multiply 9 times negative 25, I get negative 225. And B is equal to 30. So I'm going to type that in. Negative 225, negative 225. I'm going to look at the table, and I want to find out where x is 30. Scroll down. There's 50, there's 40, there's 31, see where my sum adds up to 30 with the factors of negative 225. I've got a factor of 5 and negative 45 that adds up to negative 40, and then I've got 9 and negative 25, which adds up to 16. So with this being the case that I cannot have a sum